Alright, hey everyone, what's going on? If you notice, my mouth doesn't match up with the talking because for some reason every time OBS updates, it switches my mic and doesn't actually record my audio. So we were talking about how we come up with some weird things, and we see some weird things in Great Ball Tier, like the weakness pulsation we saw last episode. And our question of the day is, what do you think Series 11 will be? Don't forget to like and subscribe, but we'll jump into the first battle here, and we see that it is Reshiram. Or not, we have Reshiram. It is Benji Wang's Kiram White team. So we know a little bit about this team because it's been featured on Cybertron VGC's channel, but it's not much I remember. So I decided to go Reshiram to have the same kind of pressure, and I wanted to lead Stakataka, but I was worried about the Landorus lead. Not to mention, I was like 60% certain that the Kiram White had Earth Power on it. I think it might be Assault Vest now that I'm thinking back at it. But I go Suicune third to have a little bit of Snarl and Scald for the Landorus, the Scizor, and the Incineroar. But yeah, we go ahead and we start the battle. We see that they go ahead and lead Incineroar and Kiram White. Now at this point, I'm thinking to myself, you know, Incineroar has to fake out something, and honestly, I just assumed that they were going to fake out the Landorus. So, wanting to avoid getting hit with a Freeze Dry or Blizzard or an Icy Wind from that Kiram White, I opted getting a little ahead of myself. But we see the Intimidates go off. We see that Landorus is the faster one, and I decide to go into the Kiram White with my Reshiram and switch in to Suicune, because I wanted to avoid a nice tack, and if it was anything other than Freeze Dry, Suicune was going to take it well, and plus then we would have the ability to get some Snarls off or Scald into the Incineroar. But I made the wrong call, and we see that Incineroar goes ahead and fakes out Reshiram, and they go for the Blind Blizzard and get a double hit. So we go ahead and protect and decide to set Tailwind. I wanted to get the speed advantage. So we go ahead and protect with our Reshiram. And then we see that they go to a Freeze Dry into Suicune, almost knock it out, activate our Citrus Berry, which still puts us at an okay range, not enough to take another Freeze Dry, but enough to take any hit from Incineroar. Incineroar decides to Parting Shot out, and I thought my opponent made a really good call here to double into the Suicune, expecting Reshiram to protect this time, which kind of stunk. I wish I would have made the right call on who they were targeting turn 1, but we see the Regieleki come in. So I go ahead and target into that Kiram White because I want to get it off the field before Regieleki can slow down my Pokemon. But we're going to see the Kiram White protect, and the Regieleki just knock off it with an Electro Web. Knocks out the Suicune, lowers Reshiram's speed. We're now at 1.5 speed instead of double speed because of the -1 on the speed in general. Or is it? It would be like 1.66, I guess, because I'm pretty sure drops go by thirds, where boost goes by halves. So I bring in the Stakataka because I thought it would put a lot of pressure onto Kiram White, and I'm still trying to get the Kiram White off the field before I bring in the Landorus, because Regieleki It really doesn't threaten the Landorus, so my target here was still the Kyurem White. And at this point, I'm trying to get an attack off with Stakataka, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure this Kyurem White has Earth Power, and it does, and it knocks out the Stakataka. Unfortunately, we don't have Chople Berry or Shuka Berry, anything along those lines. We actually just have the safety goggles to deal with the Amoonguss matchup in Trick Room. But we do finally get a Draco Meteor off into the Kyurem White and knock it off the field. We are down to just our Landers and our Reshiram. And so at this point, I do figure that, hey, you know, Landers is the bigger threat. So they're probably going to fake out Landers this time, and I already show Protect onto the Reshiram. So what I want to do here is I do want to protect my Reshiram. I'm checking my Tailwind turns, and we see that Reshiram is at neutral speed even with the Tailwind up right now. So I decide, you know, even if Reshiram's slower than Incineroar, I'm not getting an attack off because Regieleki's going to go into it. So I decide to Earth Power into the Regieleki, because if I can get the Regieleki off the field, Reshiram can still be somewhat of a threat. But we're just going to see the fake out into the Landorus and a Thunderbolt go into the protected Reshiram. Tailwind's gone, so we no longer have the speed advantage, and my opponent disconnects. I want to say that's not a Rage Quit, that's definitely probably a DC. As you can see by the look on my face, I'm weirded out because they definitely had that match pretty locked in as long as they could get some damage onto the Landorus. So I think at that point where I would have went ahead, I would have started targeting the Incineroar instead. So for this team, we see Celesteela, Landorus, Urshifu, Rillaboom, Whimsicott, and Reshiram. So I was kind of excited to see a Reshiram matchup, but I was also very concerned about what the Whimsicott was capable of. I was assuming it was going to be more on the hyper offense with the Urshifu, the Landorus, and the Celesteela. And then for me, when you see the Whimsicott, you just automatically now think Tailwind. So that's where my mindset went there. I was like, okay, they're going to set Tailwind, so I want to set Trick Room. So I go ahead and leave my Landers in Stakataka, and then Reshiram and Urshifu in the back. My mindset was, if they are going to lead Rillaboom and fake out, or like I would at least have some offensive power with Landers, getting a Earth Power, a Sludge Bomb, a U-turn. So I was going to U-turn out and set Trick Room. But instead I see the Reshiram on the field. And I tell myself, okay, so they either have to set Tailwind or they have to stop Trick Room. So at this point, I want to put some pressure on the Reshiram, so I go ahead and go to Earth Power into that slot, knowing that my Landorus is Choice Scarf. So if they don't Tailwind, we will hit the Reshiram pretty hard, and then we go for the Trick Room. So they go ahead and switch out the Reshiram and bring in their own Landers. That's probably to get an Intimidate off, so our Rock Slides are doing less from our Stakataka, just to make Stakataka a little weaker inside Trick Room. And we just see a Moonblast from the Whimsicott, so I thought this was a very neutral play, but it does a lot of damage to our Landers because we're just 252, 252, don't have any investment into bulk, so we take a lot of damage from that Moonblast. And I know that my Landers is Scarfed, so I just assume that I assume that I need to switch out because their Landorus is going to go first. And I was really worried about the Encore. I thought the Encore was definitely a possibility, and I should have taken it more seriously, as you'll see in the coming turns, because I decided to switch into my Reshiram and Gyro Ball the Landorus, hoping to take it out. Or did I Rock Slide? I did one of those things. So we do see the Encore, and that is going to force Stakataka to automatically use Trick Room again. And now the speed tiers have been swapped again, and Landorus goes for a really good Earthquake, which is going to completely one-shot my Stakataka. So like I said before, Encore was definitely something that I should have taken more seriously, and I could have, but I would have been forced to either take damage on the Landorus or double out. Seeing that their Landorus chose to use an Earthquake, I would have been in a good position to just switch out. We bring our Landorus back in. Reshiram has a little bit of health left, and I figure, hey, you know, our Landorus come in, we get an Intimidate off, but I decide to protect the Reshiram and try to get some chip on both the Whimsicott and the Landorus, so I do go for a Rock Slide, even though that is going to be probably the worst attack out of it, but nothing else was hitting Landorus hard enough to actually make a threat to it. We're just going to see the Tailwind go up, so now they definitely have the speed advantage. And we see the Earthquake, which I don't mind the Earthquake, so I think that this Landorus might actually be Scarfed as well, because where a Rock Slide would have hit our Landorus and done damage to the Reshiram and kept their Whimsicott a little safe. But I feel like at this point, now that Trick Room Setter is gone, I don't think the team was worried about keeping Whimsicott around at that point. They set Tailwind, they stopped Trick Room. They played this really well. So I just double into the Landorus slot, thinking, hey, maybe they switch out. And we go ahead and we see another Encore from Whimsicott, really punishing the fact that I had to play very passive, and we see a Rock Tomb. So at this point we learned that the opposing Landorus is not Scarfed, and it's lowering the speed of our Landorus. So now that we're stuck with the last two Pokemon, any stat drops are going to stick with our Pokemon. So I'm at a point where I am low on Reshiram. I still have Urshifu in the back. I decided to Rock Slide again, just to try to get Whimsicott off the field. So we do see their Reshiram come in. They do have an Intimidate out on us and a Speed Drop. So after this, like, Rock Slide isn't going to do much. Reshiram is once again stuck protecting. And we will get our Landorus knocked out from the Whimsicott. Very powerful Whimsicott. I want to say that they probably went for 252 special attack. So once again, I try to check to see if the Encores ended, and I'm stuck using Protect Still. Decide to Wicked Blow into the Reshiram because, you know, kind of have to do some damage somewhere. But at this point, I'm thinking that the match is pretty much over. It's 4-on-2. Reshiram is trapped protecting. Urshifu has a terrible matchup against Whimsicott. And we'll see that the Moonblast will bring it down to Focus Sash. And we see the Draco Meteor, thinking that it's going to go into the Reshiram. They actually do end up going into the Urshifu, because, I mean, they have 4 Pokemon left. They really don't have to play too picky with their choices. Our Urshifu goes down. We see that it's a Life Orb Reshiram, and our Encore has ended. Their Tailwind is gone. So I could hope that I have a chance to get an attack off, but honestly, whether Whimsicott Tailwinds or Whimsicott clicks Encore and Encore traps us again, this match is over. So I go ahead and quit. At this point in the video, I'm talking about how I should have respected the Encore a little more and switched out Stakataka, maybe into the Landorus, and even, no, because Landorus was out, and maybe even have doubled out. We have our next opponent with Fatty Addy. And we see this as another team featured by Cybertron. That's kind of the theme that you see a lot in Great Ball. You either see some really crazy teams, some really stock standard, or things that you've seen on Cybertron. So this is the Tapu Koko Venusaur Groudon. We know that the Groudon is Choice Bandit, so I decide that I'm going to do basically the same lead that I did before, because it's a little easier knowing that there is no option for Encore. And I go Landorus second just so I could do the same thing, like U-turn out when I need to. We have Urshifu in third, and then Suicune in fourth. I don't bring Amoonguss because with the combination of Groudon, Entei, and Tapu Koko and Incineroar, Spore is useless with electric terrain on the field, and then there's just so much that threatens Amoonguss, so I chose not to bring it, and bringing Suicune instead, where it has a better matchup against the Groudon, has a better matchup against the Incineroar, has a better matchup against the Entei. So we see the lead of Tapu Koko and Venusaur, and I'm still kind of worried about a Sleep Powder, but I'm not worried about it in terms of setting up Trick Room. I just didn't want my Landorus to be like SOL and incapacitated. But either way, my Stakataka has safety goggles, so I know that Trick Room is a pretty safe play at this point. So I go ahead and go for Trick Room, and I U-turn. Do I U-turn? I do end up clicking U-turn. I click it into the Tapu Koko because I believe the Tapu Koko is going to switch out. So I know I'm going to get some chip on whatever's coming in. So we see the Tapu Koko switch back out, and actually into the Porygon 2, which is something I didn't expect. I guess they're switching it in to help prevent Trick Room, or yeah, help reverse Trick Room. So I switch into Urshifu because I automatically wanted to put pressure onto the opposing Porygon. And we see the Venusaur uses Grass Knot, which does a lot of damage, but that's because the Venusaur is Life Orb. So we go ahead and get Trick Room up, and we now know that we have the advantage. Go ahead and Gyro Ball into the Venusaur and close combat into the Porygon 2, hoping that the chip is enough to knock out the Porygon. And Gyro Ball trying to hit Venusaur as hard as I can. We're going to go ahead and see the Porygon switch out, knowing that it's going to have to take a close combat from Urshifu, and if they want any chance of resetting Trick Room or ending Trick Room themselves, they need the Porygon 2 round, and plus I think it has Ice Beam to check the Landorus, so the Landorus kind of runs away if the Porygon 2 gets knocked out. We do land a close combat into Groudon, which is actually really good. So at this point, I decide that Groudon's slower. Venusaur is really fast now, so we're going to go ahead and set Wide Guard because Precipice Blades is the best move that Groudon can click right now, knowing that Urshifu is on the field, so at least they'll hit Urshifu. So we go ahead and Wicked Blow into the Groudon and set Wide Guard. That way we just stop the Groudon from attacking at all. I knew Stakataka didn't have the power at the time to knock out the Groudon by itself with Gyro Ball or Rock Slide, so I thought that keeping Urshifu around for another turn by blocking P-Blades was a really good call. We put Groudon right in the red, and Venusaur Sludge Bomb goes ahead and brings Urshifu down the Sash. Unfortunately, we do get poisoned. I feel like if we didn't get poisoned there, we would have been able to Rock Slide and Wicked Blow into the Venusaur and really put them in a situation where they are behind. So Landorus comes out, we get the Intimidate off onto the Groudon. It's really not useless on the Venusaur, but one thing that we like in this situation is that the Groudon is low enough to be knocked out by a Rock Slide, and because Sun is up, Venusaur is going to be the slowest thing in Trick Room, even with our Landorus being Scarfed. If they're max speed Venusaur, then it's in Sun, then it is slower in Trick Room than our Landorus. We go ahead and we see the switch out of our Groudon into the Porygon 2. And we get a Rock Slide into the Venusaur slot, dealing a good amount of damage. So I want to say that this thing probably has a lot of speed and special attack investment, not a lot of bulk. And Earth Power just goes ahead and finishes off the Venusaur. At this point, I'm trying to think of my endgame based on who comes in and how to respond to that. I know that right now my priority is knocking out the Porygon 2, because the Porygon 2 more than likely has Ice Beam, and Landorus is kind of my key to winning this match, which is why I locked into Earth Power, because I didn't know if I was going to get a chance to switch Landorus out, and I wanted to make sure that I had a move that hit everything else on the field hard. We see that we have one more turn of Trick Room, so we go ahead and go a little aggressive with our Stakataka. I'm debating on what's going to do more damage to Porygon 2, because my decision is to double into the Porygon 2. I go ahead and click Rock Slide and Earth Power, thinking that the Tapu Koko might protect to stall at the last turn of Trick Room. We get good chip on the Porygon. The Porygon fortunately ends up flinching, and we see a Nature's Madness into the Landorus, which will bring Landorus down to half. And now the Trick Room's over, we know that Landorus is probably the fastest thing on the field. I believe this is an Assault Vest Tapu Koko, so we go ahead and Gyro Ball and just Earth Power into the Porygon 2, knowing that it is enough to knock it out. And we figure here that either the Tapu Koko will protect and let Groudon switch in, or we are going to lose our Stakataka to the Tapu Koko. We go ahead and attack into the Porygon 2, which is enough to knock it out. And we're going to see that Thunderbolt, or Volt Switch here, is enough to knock out the Stakataka. So they go ahead and switch out and pivot into the Groudon, which is the only thing left, and it has just the tiniest bit of health. But one thing I did notice and I did like seeing is that the sunlight does fade, so that means that when Suicune comes in, its Scald will be doing a good amount of damage, even though we just need a little bit on that Groudon. To have the sun gone so it doesn't restrict the damage is putting our Suicune in a really good position. And we already know that outside of Trick Room, in normal play, our Scarfed Landorus is faster than its Tapu Koko. It has some chip damage on it, so if it was Focus Sash, we've already broken that. And if it was Assault Vest, it should be in a range where a Earth Power is enough to knock it out. And we see just that. We see the Earth Power go into the Tapu Koko, getting the knockout, which leaves just the Suicune and the Landorus against the Groudon, and Scald outside of Sun with the little damage that little health that Groudon had left was enough to get the knockout. So luckily enough, we were able to play that last matchup pretty well. We got caught off guard in match 2 by Encore, which we shouldn't have, and that was on my fault on me. Just a terrible play overall. And in the first match, I feel like we could have still had a chance if we played our position well, but my opponent definitely did still have the upper hand. So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. We technically went 2-1 this video as well, but I'm gonna say it's like 1-1-1. Even though the first match counts as a win, I really don't count it as a win because I feel like my opponent would have ended up winning if that match played through. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. Once again, if you guys enjoy this, do not forget to like and subscribe, and don't forget to answer the question of the day. What do you think Series 7 will be? Here I'm making a joke about how I want it to be a little cup deep down inside. But anyways, that's going to be all. Hope you guys enjoy this, even though this is my first like voiceover. Well, no, I have voiceover for Players Cup 3. The video ended, and I'm still recording audio. Okay, love you, bye.